For those of you that love talking about animals, from Sci News, paleontologists discover new plant eating dwarf dinosaur. A professional paleontologist studying fossils in a collection at Harvard University has identified a new species of dinosaur. And now, from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. Welcome to Creature Guy Live Prehistoric News. Let's dive right back into the prehistoric news of the day. Well, who is this hideous, what looks to be some species of heterodontosaur? I have seen this picture before. I don't know who's precisely it is. He's covered in feathers, which is odd considering it doesn't look like, or there isn't any evidence for the heterodontosaurs, which are a lineage of likely mostly herbivorous ornithischian dinosaurs to have had feathers.
I'm sorry, he looks like a porcupine.
Yeah, they are giving him porcupine-like, quill-like feathers, which I do believe there might be evidence on certain smaller species of dinosaurs for them to have had, especially certain species of smaller ceratopsians, like the Psittacosaurus. So let's keep going. The newly discovered species named Pegomastax africanus, or thick jaw from Africa, has a short parrot shaped beak up front, a pair of stabbing canines, and tall teeth tucked behind for slicing plants. The tall teeth in upper and lower jaws operated like self sharpening scissors, so a bit like a guillotine, with shearing facets that slid past one another when the jaws closed. The parrot shaped skull, less than 3 inches long, may have been adapted to plucking fruit. I don't know. Pegomastax evolved somewhere around, what, 100. Wait, this is a completely. I was thinking of earlier species of heterodontosaur, like Heterodontosaurus. Their fruit hadn't evolved when Heterodontosaurus existed, which was somewhere around 150 million years ago. I do not know how old this animal is. So let's see.
When did fruit come into existence?
Probably around the same time as different species of flowers. So maybe it's a big guess, but it could have been as early as somewhere between 135 to 145 million years ago. So the first 10 million years of the early Cretaceous period. Details of the dinosaur's anatomy and lifestyle are part of a monograph by Professor Paul Sereno. So this is the paleontologist that um, has done a lot of research on spinosaurs like Suchomimus, as well as discovering Sarcosuchus, the large crocodile from Africa, and as well even doing research on Spinosaurus, I believe Eodromius, of the University of Chicago, dedicated to these puny herbivores. Okay, let's see. Very rare, he said, that a plant eater like Pegomastax would sport sharp edged and large canines like that of a vampire. Still isn't, a unique. Well, it's not unique necessarily. Well, I guess it depends on the size. Anyway, Herodontosaurs were the only dinosaurs to really have this type of characteristic. They were like the saber tooths of the dinosaurs. Some scientists have argued that consuming meat, or at least the insects, was a good part of the diet of heterodontosaurs, which evolved near the root of the great bird hipped radiation of dinosaurs that includes the famous plant eaters Triceratops and Stegosaurus. I wouldn't doubt that occasionally heterodontosaurs might have fed on bones or insects, but flesh occasionally, since we see it happen often with many species of herbivores today. However, when it comes to different species of reptiles that are specifically herbivorous, meat is very dangerous for them, especially different species of iguanas. They're strictly herbivorous. Certain species of plant eating birds, I'm not entirely sure of. Let's keep going. Self defense and competitive sparring for mates is more likely their role. Jousting each other with those canines. It's certainly possible. I mean, that would be quite interesting. Based on microscopic examination of the teeth of Pegomastax and kin, wear facets and chipped enamel suggest that the fangs of Pegomastax and other heterodontosaurs were used like those of living fang deer for nipping or even digging rather than slicing flesh. Musk deer, dig with their canines? No. Like, I mean, I guess I'd have to double check on that, but um, hmm. I take that with a grain of salt. Canines tend to be quite fragile if they're not used in a specific way. But anyway, let's take a look at certain other individuals that lived possibly much earlier than Pegomastax. So this is a member of the sauropodomorph lineage called Ankylosaurus, which is from the United States and it existed in the country somewhere around 195 million years ago. So still shortly before carnivores like Dilophosaurus would evolve over in Arizona. Ankylosaurus, for a while, it was considered to be quite small, maybe somewhere around 8 feet in length. But it looks like from other specimens that the adults might have actually reached somewhere around 16 to 20 feet in length. So this individual right here might be a bit small, or at least when looking at the larger species. It is also interesting how, when looking at the sauropodomorphs and looking at the larger long-necked sauropods like Diplodocus, Brachiosaurus, their forelegs would have just that one clawed toe, and it would be, just a bit of a bland, sort of a wide foot, beyond that appendage, whereas the sauropodomorphs had a very distinct, 5-digit and also, quite flexible hand.
So is this an old depiction?
Um, I wouldn't say, by too much. I mean, I wouldn't say this is too far from accuracy. Maybe a bit more weight along the core, but many species of sauropodomorphs were not necessarily as wide. They didn't have as wide of a rib cage as like different species of sauropods would have, or at least the large stomachs. So this is an older depiction of Ankylosaurus. Now, would it have fed on mammals? Probably not, looking at the, dental plan of these sauropodomorphs, especially
Maybe
Ankylosaurus.
he was just playing with it.
Yeah, yeah, I think some are running away. Anyway, this it's almost like somebody took a ornithomimid, so one of the Cretaceous, omnivores, and then combined it with, Plateosauromorph, so this is interesting. This is a model from the 2001 series when dinosaurs roamed America. I still think it's pretty good. Now, it used to be like specifically mentioned that animals like Ankylosaurus were quite distantly related to the sauropods, since the true sauropods wouldn't evolve for at least another 20 million years. And it looks like animals like Ankylosaurus or this specific sauropodomorph was one of the closest. It belonged to a close sister group of sauropodomorphs. So one of the closest cousins to the sauropods. And it's very possible that they might have roamed in small herds because looking at the habitat they existed in, which is possibly a dense forest, it's very possible they weren't in large groups. So let's go back to the article. Let's see. Um, a bizarre covering of bristles, something like that of a porcupine, likely covered most of the body of Pegomastax, which measured less than 2 feet in length and weighed less than a house cat. Um, yeah, that might be accurate in some instances. So maybe around 5 to 10 pounds. I mean, because it likely had hollow bones. These bristles first came to light in a similar sized Heterodontosaur Taenulong, discovered recently in China and described in the study. Buried in lake sediment and covered by volcanic ash, Taenulong preserves hundreds of bristles spread across its body from its neck to the tip of its tail. Wow. So I didn't realize with animals like Taenulong that we had several feathers preserved of them.
Is it saying feathers or is it referring to more of porcupine quills?
No, it's referring to specifically. I mean, well, here's the thing. Feathers are technically made of keratin as well. So, though it's a bit of a different type of genetic makeup, but in terms of those, I guess bristles are another version or another name for quills. So possibly, but not used in the same way. So let's see. In life, dwarf-sized heterodontosaurs like Pegomestax would have scampered around in search of suitable plants, looking something like a nimble two-legged porcupine. Yeah, that is a hideous creature. Um, let's see. When Pegomastax lived some 200 million years ago. Okay. So it's towards the beginning of the Jurassic. I kept thinking Cretaceous. So it's munching on fruit. I don't think fruit wouldn't have evolved yet. Unless it was relating to some other type of plant. Hmm. The supercon in Pangea had just begun to split into northern and southern landmasses. It was already splitting, like far beforehand in the Triassic. Heterodontosaurs appeared to have divided similarly. The northern species with simple triangular teeth like Taunulong, and the southern species with taller crowns like Pegomestax. So, although virtually unknown to the public, Pegomastax and kin were the most advanced plant eaters of their day. Well, when comparing them to the sauropodomorphs, they most likely were. They could probably chew their food to some extent, still nowhere near much later descendants. But even the sauropods would have been quite minimal, like especially just stripping off leaves and swallowing them whole. Now, you also had much earlier in the Triassic period, around 230 million years ago, a small carnivore that also belonged to the sauropodomorph lineage. Despite how, in many ways, raptor like this animal looks, it's not closely related. Now, originally, when Eoraptor was discovered, this is Eoraptor, it was thought to be an ancestor to virtually every single species of theropod. So, from Coelophysis to T Rex. And then over many years of debate, it's been more agreed upon in the community that um, Eoraptor is just a very distinct branch of Sauropodomorph, much like the certain species of Herrerasaur. So, Eoraptor was a fairly small theropod, though for the time you could say it was quite large. This animal could reach somewhere around 4 feet in length and maybe weigh up to 20 pounds. It is very possible it might have created family structures. This is a scene from the 2013 show Dinosaur Revolution. And it did show the animal with certain species of proto mammals and pseudo-Suchian reptiles that would have evolved much later in the Triassic and most likely wouldn't have coexisted with Eoraptor. Um, and here is the preserved skull. This is a very well preserved specimen. And yes, despite it being a sauropodomorph, and usually sauropodomorphs are seen as just being herbivores, this would have been likely a strict carnivore and rarely, if ever, feeding on vegetation. And then you have an animal that's very little, if ever, talked about. This is Sciromamimus, which is it's still a big question as to what part of the carnivore family it belonged to. So was it possibly like a member of Carnosauridae, and was it like closely related to certain theropods like Ornitholestes? So far, it's just been placed in Carnosauridae. This animal was somewhere around 3 to 4 feet in length, though there were some instances where a couple of people were suggesting this animal could reach over 16 feet in length, but that seems to be a huge overestimation.
Maybe it's just its tail.
Well, they were thinking originally that this was a juvenile, and it seems to be that it was close to the adult size. Um, Yeah, it's a very well preserved specimen. I mean, almost everything is intact. So, this animal existed over in Germany somewhere around 150 million years ago. And yes, it is quite distantly related to the raptors, and in some cases, even looks like a young tyrannosaur or maybe even some larger species of theropod. But in reality, it wouldn't reach a very large size. It was smaller than Velociraptor. So let me know in the comments what your favorite species of hideous dinosaur is. And from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. Welcome to, this is Creature Guy Live Daily News. Remember to like, comment, subscribe if you love talking about animals, and share this show with everyone you know, because nothing is better than all animals all the time.